maybe a pet or something like that, grab a bike helmet if you're going to be out there. Protect your head. That's going to be that's something we always recommend in any type of severe weather situation, uh, just to make sure that you're going to be in a safe spot. So again, locations that are going to be impacted are now starting to move into Delaware County, particularly the southwestern portion of Delaware County. Here in Powell, you're probably going to see some sort of hail, maybe some wind, but the strongest hail looks like it's going to pass north of Powell. Also, pushing Orange Township, Shawnee Hills, the little village of Shawnee Hills there in southwestern Delaware County. You're under the gun for this. And then the city of Delaware, this could be um, 10 to 20 minutes away from you. So you have a little bit of time to prepare in Delaware, but you are in the path of this hail and strong wind as well. So those are some spots to look out for. Major roads, US 42. This is pretty much following US 42, it seems. So that's a good marker on the trajectory. But 36, 37 in central Delaware County might not be a good idea to hold off travel on those routes. And then, of course, if this does continue its strength into northern Delaware County, into the Morrow County region, then I-71 travel between, let's say, Columbus and Mansfield, maybe not a good idea at the moment. So we can kind of figure out where this is going to go from here. What kind of energy is available? Is it going to strengthen? Is it going to weaken? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and Mike, if you want to switch what you're looking at to the correlation coefficient, that three-body scatter spike is very evident now. And when we see those type signatures, that definitely confirms that we are seeing that large hail, likely not just reaching
Wow.
the surface, but this is also
Yeah.
showing a very good updraft. And the correlation also suggesting that large hail there in those hydrometers just to the northeast of Plain City. But again, Mike, those type signatures we don't see that a lot around here. So that definitely should hopefully kind of be that heightened awareness to tell folks that, hey, there's some large potentially damaging hail, and there is now a confirmed report of 1 inch hail in Plain City as of 6 minutes ago, and Tyler just sent that over from NWS chat there as well. But yeah, this is moving right up 42. But when we see those type signatures, folks, that is a good indication to you to get your vehicles and other potentially belongings that might get damaged indoors as quickly as possible. So yeah, and as Mike said, this is a good call out for the city of Delaware. You're not in the warning yet, but if you have a Delaware address, you might be. You can make sure that you have our Bell Park Weather Network app downloaded, and you can get these alerts and things of that nature. Mike, that latest scan that came in, that hail core seems to have fanned out just a little bit. It's not as deep and concentrated, but it seems to be a little bit more elongated. But I definitely still feel there's likely a penny to quarter and maybe even slightly larger than quarter-sized hail still falling, even just based on the latest scan.
Right, exactly. And when you look at like Nick has been saying, we have all these radar products at our disposal. Velocity helps us with wind and rotation. I'm not seeing any rotation right now, which is a good thing. But yeah, we can see this hail in several ways. He mentioned what is called a correlation coefficient. Some TV stations or other media sources may call that like a debris tracker. Basically, what it does is it tells you if there's a similarity in the size of what's falling out of the sky. So if the radar is detecting a lot of things being similar size, it's probably all rain. But if it's different sizes, then it starts to send us these signals that like, hey, something else is going on, like either large hail. In the case of damage, it could be lofted debris, that sort of thing. So that's what we're looking at here, and that's why we're able to determine that the radar is giving us signals that we're not seeing consistent precipitation. We're not seeing that uniform raindrop shape. We're seeing something that has a lot of different shapes and sizes. And in this case, all the clues in the world that it's hail. We've had the reports, we've had the ground truth. We can see it on the intense pink and purple on the radar, the reflectivity. We got a lot going on here, and that's where we're determining this, and it's right in these spots that Nick and I have been mentioning. Yeah, Shawnee Hills, you need to be away from windows now. It's on top of you in Delaware County, still in Union County, a little bit along state, or no, I'm sorry, US 42 on the Union Delaware County line. and then it's probably going to follow 42 up into Delaware. So, Ostrander up there, that's far western Delaware County. You're going to get scraped by this, maybe. We'll have to see what happens to the hail core on the next scan. Unfortunately, Delaware County is not doesn't have the best radar coverage because it's a bit far from the Wilmington radar, and it's even farther from the Cleveland radar. So that's like our little Ohio radar hole there. But because we're getting such strong signatures, despite its location, Nick, I think we've got all the clues in the world that people need to be in their safe spot right now.
Yeah, and I definitely think now the Columbus Zoo is still kind of in fair play. Definitely need to make sure that you are indoors. I know, obviously, it's still early in the season for the zoo and things of that nature potentially, but in terms of getting a lot more people out there, but this is going to come very close to it. I would not be outdoors. I know that they do have some shelters and some indoor type things. I would not try to get out to your car because we have large hail falling at this point in time, and that's not particularly something that I would want to be, trying to seek shelter in. So, real quick, I do want to bounce down to the southern storm because we do have another large hail indicator here in southeastern portions of Brown County, in between Georgetown and West Union. Not quite as significant as what we're seeing up here across parts of central Ohio, but real quick, just as a heads up too, if you happen to lose us on Facebook, we are live on YouTube now as well. Went ahead and added that in here, but we do have another severe thunderstorm warning for quarter-size hail until 5 o'clock for places east of Georgetown up to about Peebles and over to about West Union. The movement on that, very similar, kind of north-northeast at about 50 miles per hour. Lightning is increasing on that storm, and again, as I talked about a little bit earlier, that can sometimes be a precursor to maybe the storm beginning to intensify. So you can see the latest scan there, and there's also another storm that may merit a warning shortly coming into Claremont and southwestern Brown County, about to cross US 52 out of Mount Olivet, Kentucky. So we'll watch that cell riding northeast as well. And Mike, we really did not expect hail to be the big issue today, but so far it certainly is. And that latest scan now into the central Ohio storm, Powell and areas just northwest of Powell, that purple has picked up again. And this is probably one of the larger size hail cores in terms of length on the radar that we've seen in quite a while here too.
It sure is, and I really do think a lot of it had to do with that our cloud cover broke a little bit. Forecasted highs today were in the low to mid 70s, many spots getting into the upper 70s, maybe one or two locations cracking 80 briefly. There's some humidity in the air, so it's April. It's that time of year. When you get those ingredients together, it's not going to be anything widespread, but you might get one or two storms that are powerful, and that's kind of the situation we have going on here in Delaware County. And yeah, like Nick mentioned, there's also that severe thunderstorm warning to the south. Again, that one or two storm situation there. That looks like a hail event as well, looking at the correlation coefficient and the reflectivity. Again, that looks to me like we are dealing with Brown and Adams County there, so right along the county line. Yeah, and certainly some clues that there's some large hail going on there as well. The key being one or two storms. It's not going to be a situation where a lot of us get impacted, but it's a situation where you should at least be weather aware, depending on where you live. And right now, the places that need to be in their safe spot away from windows are Delaware County. I would go ahead and include the city of Delaware in that. Right now, places not threatened are Sunbury, Galena, Berkshire Township. That's where the outlet malls are on 71. Right now, the 71 corridor, we're just going to have to hold off and see what happens. Polaris is okay. Worthington's fine. Dublin's fine. Powell and the Columbus Zoo, it's close, but the majority of it will scoot north. And then if you're in Morrow County, you should be paying attention to this as well. And then to the south.
Yeah, and Mike, they just issued a new warning for the city of Delaware and extreme northwestern Licking County until 5:15 for quarter-size hail. Wind threat is radar indicated. I'm sorry, yeah, the wind is, but the hail threat is as well. But even though we've had a couple of reports, one in South Charleston and one in Plain City of that quarter-size hail. But now the city of Delaware until 5:15. And Mike, this storm is moving pretty quickly, 45 to 50 miles per hour. So the good news is I don't know that you're going to see accumulating hail with the storm moving this quick, but certainly there's going to be obviously a good amount of hail falling, and it might briefly kind of stick around for a short time, but certainly not something to be outside to try to get any kind of pictures of with hail of even that magnitude. I could not imagine getting hit by a quarter in the head. Definitely not something that sounds very interesting anyway to want to do.
No, they're moving fast. Again, they fall 30, 40, 50,000 feet from the sky. I mean, there's a terminal velocity with that, meaning that the hailstone really can't fall any faster due to the air it encounters and all the wind and stuff. But either way, it's going to hurt. They're heavy. Hailstones are very dense. If you've ever cut one open before, they have like layers, kind of like tree rings, and that kind of tells you how many cycles it's gone through the thunderstorms, freezing and melting cycles, as it cycles through the updraft and downdraft of the storm. I'm not advocating that anyone go out and find a hailstone to cut open right now. Again, that looks stay safe, please. Away from windows and things like that. If you're the type to watch a storm from the garage door or the open garage door or something like that, just stand back far enough that hail won't bounce in and hit you. But yeah, so that's kind of the key with this. Still seeing some signals. Okay, I just got a new radar scan. You might be slightly ahead of me. It does seem that it is weakening a little bit.
I was just going to say that. Yep, just a little bit, but still, even penny-sized hail could still cause some brief issues anyway. So if you live in the city of Delaware, I would still be kind of on guard for that. Still noticing a little bit of a three-body spike, but it's not as pronounced. And I can show you that on correlation coefficient. Kind of hard to tell now just because the way the storm is oriented and the way that the radar beam is shooting, we don't have as clear of a signature, but certainly still indicating some large hail near Powell and just north of there. You've also got 315 and US Route 23 kind of be traveling. If you're heading north out of Columbus, I'd hang tight just a little bit and let this storm kind of pass by. And then you can kind of resume your travels. And real quick, I did see a comment out of Adams County. We're seeing some hail falling. Curious to see what size that you're getting there, Maggie. If you could let us know, I would appreciate that. Based on radar signature, I would tend to think, again, this penny to quarter size hail threat looks to be more of the main concern. And I saw a question about the storm near Chillicothe. That is also starting to show some signs of hail, but it is not severe. That will ride north-northeast, likely along the 159 corridor towards Kingston and maybe Stoutsville and Tarleton. Angel, I don't see that storm coming to Laurelville at this point in time. If you have evening plans, maybe you have baseball games with the kids tonight or softball games, Mike, obviously the rule of thumb, if you hear thunder, get indoors. And some of these games this evening might have to be postponed, but certainly not a widespread event like you said, but certainly a couple of these storms could cause some evening plan issues as well.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Especially if there's any lightning involved, that's always an issue. At least when it comes to high school sports, the OHSAA has a good policy of waiting 30 minutes after the last visible lightning strike to resume play for everyone's safety. Because if you can see the lightning, it's potentially close enough that there's enough of a polarity change, positive and negative, between the cloud and the ground that the lightning could flash anywhere. So that's going to be the name of the game. If you have any outdoor activities tonight, maybe some softball leagues with any unofficial rules, that's a general rule of thumb to follow. In this case, and especially large hail, you don't want to get caught outside playing baseball, softball, track, or anything like that with large hail threatening. And hopefully those in Delaware County are aware of that. And Nick, am I seeing a new warning for Marion, Richland, and Knox?
Oh yeah, they drew a pretty large size polygon now to include all of Morrow County, portions of southwestern Richland County, eastern portions of Marion County, and portions of Knox County. So we are seeing a new warning there, and this is going to go until 6 o'clock tonight. So a long duration warning. Mike, when we see that, that would tend to think to me that the Weather Service in Cleveland has some very high confidence that this is not only going to produce large hail, but they expect it to last for quite a while. When we see this warning is set to last for another hour and 6 minutes. That's not something that we see all the time either.
No, not at all. That is very interesting, especially considering the speed of it. But I think they must feel that they're confident that there's enough energy in the atmosphere ahead of it, which I believe. Again, we've been seeing sunshine. I see peaks of it still here south of the storm, and that must have been the case up in that area. I'm gonna try to see if I can get a look at some temperatures up in Morrow and Richland County to see what kind of energy we might be tapping into here. Let's see here. What do I have? I have 68 at Guam Airport with a dew point of 53. That's not too impressive. But let's take a look and see if we can get something Mount Gilead. So Marion is at 66. So actually temperatures aren't that impressive, but we must have a decent amount of cold air above our heads, which actually makes sense considering the large hail. So despite the temperatures being relatively comfortable, we have a lot of instability just because of that cold layer above us. So yeah, the Weather Service is confident in that sticking around. So we're looking at places like Mount Gilead, Cardington, the small town of Ashley on the Morrow and Delaware line. We're talking about Troy Township, Mid-Ohio, Lexington, Belleville, Fredericktown, all those towns in north central Ohio that we're really going to have to look out for this storm, which again right now is near the Columbus Zoo, but it's booking it. So if you're in any of those places I mentioned and you know where the Columbus Zoo is, it's coming quick. Morrow County, you're looking at maybe 20 minutes. Richland, maybe 40 to 50. Again, if you're in like Lexington, Belleville, Perry Township, Troy Township, places like that. So. And there we go. I just got a new scan. It looks like it's not as wide, but the southern fringe might look a little stronger. Okay. I want to go ahead and say that if you're there at exit 131, Berkshire Township near the Outlet Mall, go ahead and get in your safe spot. It's almost there. That eastern fringe is starting to look a little more intense.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm also noticing a little bit of a backward C shape, just a little bit, and that might be our wind threat starting to verify. And there was also a confirmed report of 1-inch hail in Powell, and I would imagine that's probably it looks like it was just northwest of Powell, so that doesn't surprise me. But there's an updated track on that, so again, that's kind of taking that northeastward now. And I know Tyler is probably still watching and with us. Let's see if we can get another push notification sent out to those down the line here. Maybe we could push that to our YouTube page, get folks in the heads up about that. Let's go down to our southern storm real quick. Again, there's a couple of these that kind of have our attention. Obviously, the one that currently has a warning on it for south central Highland County, eastern portions of Brown County, and a good portion of Adams County until 5 p.m. That one still has potential of maybe some quarter-size hail with that. And then there's another one coming right into Georgetown, not warned at the moment, but the Weather Service does have a special weather statement out for that one. And we could be seeing maybe some quarter-size hail, maybe try to develop with that storm strength, but more than likely we're seeing penny-size hail. So, and another confirmed report now of penny-size hail in Powell. So we're starting to get an increased number of reports, which is not surprising. And real quick, also for those of you in Northeast Ohio, not to forget about you, but we're watching a couple of stronger storms in between Cleveland and Akron. Not severe right now, but the Weather Service is monitoring that just for some hail that may be around pea size. So if you live around Twinsburg and Solon up to about Pepper Pike there along the 471 corridor, just kind of be prepared. You might see some small hail and some heavy rainfall. And Mike, obviously now we're moving towards rush hour and it's Friday evening. Everybody wants to get out and about, probably has some plans, but if you encounter these storms, definitely want to slow down and allow a few extra minutes to where you're going tonight.
Yeah, especially that one, like you said, in northern Summit County right now. That's right along 271. Man, that's going to be a traffic jam there. I don't like that. I know 271, it's stacking up at 5 o'clock on a Friday, I'm sure, and the heavy rain and maybe even possible small hail if there's going to be any sort of potential interaction, maybe interaction with the lake. The lake boundaries can sometimes intensify storms, especially in the Cleveland area. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. All storm motion seems to be northeast. So again, even that storm down south, Nick, am I right that does not have a severe warning on it anymore?
I still see one. Well, it is 5 o'clock, so that one is going away. So the southern warning is gone. Essentially,
Okay,
within the
good.
next couple of seconds, it'll pop off. At least on my screen, it'll be gone. But and then we just have our one hailstorm, if you will, in Delaware. And I'm seeing a couple other comments coming in now. We have some pea-sized hail in West Delaware. No surprise whatsoever. And do we think there's going to be a watch? No. The Storm Prediction Center said that based on the isolated coverage and nature, that a watch was not likely. But again, if that can change. But based on the latest mesoscale discussion, which shockingly and I guess ironically in some aspects did not include parts of central Ohio, and now we have this kind of overproducing storm moving through central Ohio. So we'll continue to watch and see where that progresses. But yeah, we're down now to just two warnings kind of in central and now kind of moving in towards mid-Ohio. Not the mid-Ohio, but mid-Ohio as in the Mansfield area. But if you're kind of moving up US 42, still kind of a really, that's kind of been the good orientation, if you will. Not quite I-71, but kind of right up 42. We've been tracking this since it came up London, and it has not really deviated very much from that path at all.
Right. No, it stayed about northeast at 45 miles per hour?
Yep, right in that ballpark. Yep.
Yeah. So, still though, just because of its proximity to 71 right now, if you had plans, maybe you work in Columbus, live in Mansfield, or vice versa, and you have to make a trip or anywhere in between Mount Gilead to Delaware, any of that stretch between exit 131, the Outlet Mall, and probably I would say almost the Richland County line. So that would be like mile 158. You're just not gonna want to. Just because it does seem to be shifting a little bit more toward the 71 corridor. But 42 and 71 run parallel, so either way, you're going to be running into some nasty weather, depending on what route you take. So I'd hold off a little bit. It's moving fast. Give yourself a half-hour delay, and you're going to be in much better shape. Your drive's going to be much more pleasant, and you're not going to deal with hail, which is kind of a big thing. One thing I really do want to mention, this was an issue that came up more so in the Great Plains over the past couple of weeks. If you do run into hail on the highway, never come to a full stop and block traffic just to be under an overpass. If you can pull over and be under the overpass, that's fine. The problem is if you clog traffic, then you trap people. That did occur. I can't remember which state, but it was out in the Great Plains recently. And it was causing some major trouble for some people who just got kind of trapped. So that way you can at least keep lanes of traffic open. You need to pull over. Despite the hail threat, your car is still a much better place to be than outside. So keep that in mind. If you're in your car, you're probably safe. Maybe don't hunch over the windshield. Try to stay away from the windshield. But if you can stay under the covered part, you'll be okay. That's just one thing we always like to pass along. Most of you out there probably like, oh, well, of course, that makes sense. So I for most of you guys, it's not going to be an issue, but just something to consider. Especially if you know anyone who might be traveling on 71 right now, if you know anyone who makes that commute to Columbus or anything like that, and then lives up north, give them a call. It doesn't hurt, just to make sure that they're aware that they might run into this along I-71 right now.
Yeah, that's a very good comment to kind of point out, and then that's actually something that I really hadn't thought much about, but I appreciate that. Also, real quick, too, getting some reports of pea-sized hail in Summit County does not surprise me whatsoever. And real quick, I do want to bounce down to southern Ohio because, again, while these storms are not severe, we're talking Georgetown, Sinking Spring, Peebles, Chillicothe, and west of Lucasville. There's 4 thunderstorms there that have our attention, but they're not currently severe. But if you're anywhere from, say, Wilmington, Georgetown, Hillsborough, Chillicothe, Waverly, over the next hour or so, these may continue to move kind of northeast and may impact some of those communities. And Mike, the latest scan on that Delaware storm, that eastern flank you mentioned that was starting to pick up a little bit, and I'm seeing that. And the radar algorithm is back up to indicating at least 1-inch hail. So that southeastern flank, where it's kind of a little bit more isolated and by itself, might be trying to re-intensify a little bit once again.
Yeah, and if you've been with us for a while, we had a little discussion about radar coverage in this area, and this is unfortunately one of the worst spots in Ohio when it comes to coverage, because you're right on that border between Wilmington and Cleveland's radar, so you're almost about 100 miles away from both. So we're scanning 6,000 to 7,000 feet in the atmosphere. But the thing with hail, though, is that upper level scan is still pretty useful, because that's the level that hail develops. Actually, it develops higher than that. But if we're seeing hail at 6, 7, 8,000 feet, and it's big, there's a pretty good chance that's going to hit the ground. So that's why, despite the limited data, the Weather Service is still pretty confident in this one. So, and that's why this includes all of Morrow County, the northwestern half of Knox County. So Richland County. So we're talking Lexington, Belleville, Washington Township, Perry Township, Jefferson Township, Clear Fork Reservoir, Pleasant Hill Lake. All of those spots are not immediately under the gun, but are in the warning because the potential exists that it could end up there at some point. Fredericktown, Mount Vernon, Marengo, and Marengo, it's almost there. So that's exit 140 on I-71. I know they just built a large facility out there. So hopefully folks that are even working on that are taking shelter. But yeah, this is a serious situation. Big hail doesn't affect this part of the country all that often. 1 or 2 times a year it does, and today's one of those days. The good thing about it is it's isolated. The vast majority of you aren't going to have to worry about it, but it's our friends in northern Delaware, I-71 Morrow County, I-71 Richland County, and then far western Knox County that we're a little concerned about at this time.
Yeah, and real quick, while we're kind of zoomed out, get a little bit of a larger view, seeing again a few spots still in southwest Ohio and southern Ohio, as Mike alluded to earlier, east and southeast of Cincinnati, that you can see some of these lightning strikes have kind of picked up. And there was a report of a 54-mile-per-hour wind gust a little bit ago in Harrison County, Kentucky, just to the south of Cincinnati. So as these storms ride northeast, kind of up US 62, those of you eventually in Columbus, I do anticipate some additional thunderstorms working through at some point here down the line. Also watching a storm near Chillicothe that's got some hail on that as well. And then a few other scattered storms in east central and northeast Ohio. I take you back up into Summit County just real quick here. Right there around Solon and Twinsburg. Again, there's reported some pea-sized hail. That storm not nearly as intense radar-wise, looking at that one compared to some of the other storms that we have out there this evening. So while we are watching things, I do wanted to kind of reiterate that, again, this is not a widespread type of situation. This is not an everybody's getting a warning. It may kind of seem like that, but we've been watching the storm as it's come through Springfield. That's kind of where it started to really pick up some steam. And then, as Mike said, we've got just enough energy out there today to work with. And again, right now, it looks like hail is our primary threat and not so much wind. But I would not be surprised if we are seeing some stronger wind gusts out there, and they're just maybe not being reported at this particular point in time. So again, we'll be watching that. But just on the Delaware County storm alone, there are 130 to 140 lightning strikes in just the last 20 minutes, which, again, given the somewhat marginal atmosphere today, is relatively impressive. And the good news is we're starting to see this hail core dissipate again a little bit, but it has cycled a few times, kind of gone back and forth. So something we will continue to watch. But for the time being, since that has started to weaken just a little bit, we're going to kind of reset ourselves here. We'll kind of wrap things up for the time being. But Mike, again, I think one or two additional severe thunderstorms not out of the question. That storm in Delaware may continue, and that storm could go on for a while. But additional storms will kind of be scattered in nature, and not everybody gets them, but a few of them could certainly be on the stronger side still here, I'd say, through at least the next probably 3 to 4 hours yet this evening.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. And like Nick said, if you're on that I-71 corridor from Morrow, Richland, and maybe even a little farther north, just keep an eye on it. Richland and Ashland, your area is not under the gun just yet, but just keep an eye on it. I do like that weakening trend that we're seeing, but we'll keep an eye on it as well, and we'll let you know if anything re-intensifies.
Absolutely. So for right now, folks, we're going to wrap things up here. For meteorologist Mike Joyce, I'm forecaster Nick Dunn. Thanks for watching us here early this evening. And of course, we'll come back live this evening as necessary for any additional severe weather information. Have a good evening, everybody. Remember, when thunder roars, get indoors, and be sure you have our Bell Park Weather Network app downloaded so that you can receive all the watches and warnings and get notifications as storms approach.